Hey guys, welcome to another video. Today I wanted to do a recap of 2021. Fast forward to July 2nd, I actually retired from my full-time job. So that was quite a change in my life. I was thinking I would be able to start running more. Unfortunately, a lot during the summer I really had trouble with the heat. I kind of had good days and bad days. But anyway, during the summer, I did 3 of the Trinity 5000 races. They're 5Ks that are held out at the Trinity Trails every summer. There's a series of 12 races. I used to run them all back several years ago in the summer. Now I go to occasional. I usually go to 1 or 2 per year. Well, I ran 3 times this year. My times were definitely slower than they've been in other years, but the first time I did a 27:12. The second week I ran a 25:45, and the third week I did a 25:39. I think the last time last year I ran a couple of them, and I was right around, I think one just over 25 minutes and one just under. So I was a little bit slower this year, but I did like that I progressed. I started out slower and was faster each week, so that was good. And I actually lucked out. The weeks that I showed up, I actually won my age group twice, and I finished second the other time. Now, I looked at a lot of the other weeks during the summer, and the reason I say I lucked out is there were a lot of the other weeks I wouldn't have placed, or maybe third in my age group. So I just happened to show up on the right weeks when other people were not there. Fast forward to the first weekend in August. Again, I had been suffering in the heat, but I still went. My friends at Wrath Racing were holding a new race. Well, actually, it's one we've done in the past as a fat ass race that Wrath would put on, where we would go run loops in the summer, and she had a 48-hour race, but it kind of went by her house and was through the neighborhood park and stuff. Was unofficial. But this year, she held it for the first time as an official race, moved it to a new venue, and we did a 48-hour race the first weekend in August in Texas. And it was getting up into I think it was pretty much getting up to 95 to close to 100 degrees each day. We started on Friday evening at 6 p.m. and it went till Sunday evening at 6 p.m. My goal going into it was just to get to 100 miles, and then I was going to quit, and that's what I did. I did struggle in that the heat was difficult for me, and I planned to sleep some, and I was unable to sleep. But I stayed up, and it took me 39 hours to finish in those conditions, so a lot of walking was involved. But I did do the 100 miles, and the cool thing is I don't have it with me out here right now, but there's a 100-mile brick you get for finishing that race. And I have done a video on that race. It was called the Texas Endurance Runs. And so I did do 100 miles in August. A few weeks later, the first weekend in September, I did the Blaze Trails 6.0 half marathon. That took me 3 hours and 14 minutes for a half marathon. I had done it a couple of years before in 2019 in 2 hours and 20 minutes. So I was about an hour slower, but it was close to 100 degrees this year. And I think part of my problem was I went out and volunteered and helped set up the race the day before and was out in the heat, like close to 100 degrees for like 9 hours the day prior. So I was pretty dehydrated, and then it was hot that day. So I struggled, but anyway, it was still fun. It's a neat course. I really love the race organization, and I still had a good time. I just was very slow. I was out there a long time. Then on the following week, the Hula Loop series started. Hula Loop is also put on by Wrath Racing. It's a series of 5-6 hour races that they do each fall in local parks. They're held mostly every other weekend. Anyway, that first one I went into, and it was just a hot day. I didn't go for big miles. I just was trying to be comfortable and get in a fairly good long training run. So I did a little over 18 miles. Was okay with that. Actually, last year when I did the hula loop, each of the 5 weeks, I did at least a marathon, and every week, usually between a marathon and 50K each of the 5 weeks. It turns out this year I didn't hit even a marathon on any of the weeks, but I still had a lot of fun going and visiting friends. It was quite enjoyable still. Anyway, on September 25th, which was actually my birthday, I went to do the Paris Pear 25K in Paris, Texas. It was put on by Trail Racing Over Texas. This next year it'll be taken over by Blaze Trails, but it was put on by Trail Racing Over Texas this year. Paris, Texas, they run it on the net trail, which is supposed to end up being like a 300-mile or something like that end-to-end trail. Anyway, something like that, maybe 200 and something mile end-to-end trail going through the northern part of Texas. The portion we actually ran on in Paris, we were supposed to run partly on paved trail and partly not paved, but they were doing construction to the trail, so we were actually limited to just running on the paved portion. So it basically turned into like a road run that was put on by the trail running company. But it was still beautiful. You run out there and it's nice asphalt trail, but there's overhang of trees the whole way, and it was beautiful. And that was actually a day that I felt great. I was running along with a guy that I met. We were having a great conversation. I actually hit the half marathon point that day in under 2 hours, which is a good time for me. I kept up about that pace, but we ended up, the 25K should have been about 15 and a half miles, but I ended up doing over 17 because me and the guy were talking so much we blew right through the turnaround point, and we added a little extra distance. But it was, I still considered a great race for me. I just didn't place as well as I would have if I had run the correct distance. But anyway, so that was my experience at the Paris Pear. Then on the following day, I went out to Hula Loop week 2. I did a little under 14 miles. I was just tired from doing Paris Pear the day before, so I just tried to get to a half marathon, and I did, and I quit early. But it was a good run. October 9th, I went out and did the Tejas Trails 25K. My wife went with me. She did the 10K. Beautiful little park out in East Texas and a bit south of us. It's about a 2.5-hour drive from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's put on by Trail Racing Over Texas that does an awesome job. We went down there the night before. We spent a night camping on the property and then did the race that day. I had a rough race there again, and again I was just extremely timid on the trails. I just have not done enough trail running. And in September, I had taken a fall and hurt my elbow. So that even made me extra timid. I was afraid of falling on that arm and really messing myself up. But anyway, so it took me 4 hours and 16 minutes to do the 25K. And I have done it out there before in just over 3 hours. But anyway, it was still beautiful, still a great trip. The following day on October 10th was the third Hula Loop series race. And again, after struggling and running the 25K the prior day and the travel back and forth, I was pretty tired going into it. So I just tried to get in a good long run, and I did a little over 19 miles and was satisfied with that. On October 24th was the Hula Loop series number 4. And that is the race that I actually felt the best. I thought I was going to hit the marathon point. I was moving along pretty well. I was about 19 miles into it, and that's when I started having much chest pain across the top, and it turned out I was having a heart attack. So I ended up slowing down and walking some. I ended up with 23 miles before I went home and hung out and hoped it would get better, and it didn't. And I finally ended up going into the hospital, and I was having a heart attack. I ended up with 23 miles that day in the Hula Loop. I had my surgery for the heart attack on the 25th. I got out of the hospital on the 27th. I went on, I it was November 10th, and I was told things were looking pretty good. And I'd already been told, even when I was being released from the hospital, I could start walking up to 4 miles a day. So at first I was walking very slowly. I was told I could start running a little bit, but I need to keep my heart rate low. So I started out, I was running 1 minute, walking 1 minute, and alternating. And I was doing that when I went on 11/14, I went to the final Loop day, final week of Loop. And I went out there and I thought I would just go for 6-8 miles, but I ended up feeling pretty good. I was doing the run 1 minute, walk 1 minute, so I was going very slowly, and I think my heart rate got a little high, I don't know, 8 or 10 miles in, but I didn't really feel like stopping. I just slowed down and walked the rest of the way, and I ended up getting myself to a half marathon. So I did 13.45 miles, and I finished the Loop series. The one thing that they did start this year is they started giving, for people that have done the Loop over the years, they're now giving little coins with the mileage that you've amassed. So once you've amassed 100 miles in Loop races, you'll get a coin that says 100 miles. Once you get to 500 miles, you can get a coin that says 500 miles. And then if someone reaches 1,000 miles, they can get a coin that says 1,000 miles. I've done the Loop series now. This was my 4th year, and even though I didn't ever do super long distances this year, it was enough to push me up over 500 miles, and I was actually the first person to receive a 500-mile coin, so I was pretty happy about that. I don't know if I'll ever get to 1,000 or not, but I enjoy doing the races, so I'll keep going out there. So I had originally planned on the weekend of November 20th, 21st, I had signed up for the Texas BMF, a last man standing race that was going to be held at 7IL Ranch by Trail Racing Over Texas, where you run 4.16 miles every hour on the hour until there's one person left. I did not think I could win, but based on the way I had been running earlier in the summer, I thought I could get to 80 or 100 miles. But after the heart attack, that was not going to happen. I could have gone out and finished 4 miles one time, but I wasn't moving fast enough to keep doing it hour after hour, nor do I want to risk problems with my heart overdoing it. So I did not go to that. But the following weekend on I went on November 26th to the Running the Distance. They put on the Texas Quad over Thanksgiving weekend. So they hold a marathon on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, each of the 4 days. And people come in and they can run a marathon on one day, they can do a double, run 2 days, a triple, run 3 of the days, or you can get a quad where you run a marathon for each of the 4 days. Well, none of that was going to happen to me, but I just wanted to see my friends. I went out there and I ended up doing a half marathon. I met one of my friends who was actually out there doing the quad. So she was not in any hurry to do her marathon real quickly. So she stuck with me, and I thought we were doing, she said she would walk with me, do the run-walk intervals with me. So I thought we were running 1 minute and walking 1 minute, and I was able to stay with her, and we kept going and going. I felt really good. My heart rate stayed in check. But she did tell me as we were about done with the last lap that, oh, well, actually, we were following her watch, that we were doing run 1 minute, walk 30 seconds. So that was the biggest jump up I'd had in a while. But I was able to finish a half marathon. It wasn't super fast time, but I was still quite happy with it. It took 2 hours and 50 minutes, which was much better than I've been doing. And I was just a month out from having my heart attack. So I was thrilled. Probably doing a little more than I should, but I felt fine and I was able to keep my heart rate low. So then I went on December 4th out to the Perpetual Motion 12-hour. I had originally been signed up for the 24-hour event, but of course after the heart attack I decided that wasn't wise. I thought about switching to the 6-hour and just walking a bunch of it. But I really wanted to get at least a marathon, so I switched to the 12-hour event, which would give me plenty of time. I was able to go out there and I was doing run 2 minutes and walk 1 minute, I think, at that point. But as soon as my heart rate got to 130, I would slow down and walk. Well, it ended up being kind of a warm day, so I really did not, I ran some early, but I got to where I wasn't running a lot. I walked the majority of the day. I also said if I ever felt bad, I was going to quit. Well, I didn't feel bad. I kept my heart rate in check, and I kept going and moving, and I finally started not feeling real great like 11 hours in, so I stopped. But I accumulated 40.6 miles, which was pretty astonishing for me in the condition I'm in and coming back from my heart event. So, and it turned out that the actual race I was in, the male 12-hour, was the least competitive field. There weren't as many people in it, and I actually ended up winning the race, and I won a nice prize, so I was pretty thrilled with that. So then, kind of in heart, I had forgotten I had signed up for it, but I was signed up for the Dreadmill, the Treadmill 48-hour race, and again, I think I decided, I thought things were going real well, so I was going to do the 48-hour instead of signing up for, last year I did the Dreadmill 100 mile. It's a virtual event, and you get on your treadmill and you send in pictures of each time you start and stop, and they keep track of the time, and you can win a buckle if you can do 100 miles in 48 hours. Well, last year I'd entered the 100-mile division where you just go as fast as you can to get to 100 miles. In 2020 I did that, and I finished the 100 miles in 22 hours and 27 minutes. Well, this year my plan was to just walk primarily, do a little bit of my run 2 minute, walk 1 minute intervals, but then mostly walk. And I was still planning to sleep at night, eat normal meals, and spread it out and maybe get close to 100 in the 48 hours. Well, I did not feel good I started at 11 a.m. on a Thursday. I was going till 11 a.m. on a Saturday. I did not feel good that Friday morning, so I did not cover as much distance as I needed to. But I did feel pretty good on the first day, the Thursday, and I felt pretty good on the Saturday. So I ended up covering 86.5 miles, and I was quite happy with it. Now the winner did 160 something in the 48 hours, but I was quite pleased. Anyway, so that is kind of the end of my running year and what I was able to get done. I'm hoping that 2021 means I will recover more and get back more. I'm still going to continue to do events. I hope to spend more time with friends, and I hope to have a good year. I hope you had a great year in 2021, and I hope 2022 is even better. And other than that, that's all I have for today, and keep moving.